Hi, my name is Marty Jordan. I'm a student in the Health Informatics program at the University of New England. I was given an assignment this week where I've been hired as a consultant to recommend changes for implementing a change control process, which includes how to conduct change control meetings, um, institute a change management process, and communicate changes to end users. Um, so first, I want to give you a little background information, and I'm going to use the S-bar method to do this. The S-bar method is a technique that was originally developed by the U.S. Navy, and it's a method which facilitates communication between individuals. I've chosen this method to describe the situation that occurred at MetaView that led to me being hired as the consultant to assist them in making changes. So S is for situation, and what happened was an IT disruption in the respiratory therapy department caused a temporary loss of the ability to chart patient data. B is for background, and what happened, a bedside nurse requested a change to the section of the nursing documentation, and this change was made informally by an IT analyst. Neither party realized that the change was shared with the respiratory therapy department, and it caused a major IT disruption. So A is for assessment, and my assessment of this was IT disruption due to unapproved change. R is for my recommendation, and I recommend that they institute a change control measures and a change management policies and procedures. So how do you avoid IT disruptions? First, you have to realize that change is constantly occurring, but you have to realize also that we have to try to minimize them because IT disruptions are costly. Some of the leading causes of IT disruption are workflow issues, and that's what I think happened in this situation. Workflow issues occur because we live in a world where change is occurring constantly, and to be successful in this environment, we need to keep in mind that change is occurring and that employees are going to react to it positively and negatively. And so what our goal is when we make change that we institute, that we make it smoothly so we can minimize disruption. So I am going to give you some information about how we can make the change occur smoothly. You need to have a vision. And so doing this, you need a clear, concise vision of how you're going to achieve things. You need to engage your stakeholders. And so find out who's going to be affected by the change and get them on board early. Prioritize the tasks. Even though you think you want to get everything done, you can't. So you need to realize that you cannot do everything, so prioritize from the very beginning. Identify those that are willing and engaged, and then get them to help you with the process. As I said before, there's people who react positively and negatively. And so the people that are willing, get them in early and put them in critical roles like super users, or train the trainers. Communicate. That's the most important thing. Communicate, communicate, communicate. So you need to communicate your plan, and then you need to make sure that your project manager is communicating daily, oftentimes. Listen to your stakeholders. Give feedback from the people who are using the product day to day because they have invaluable information. And then you need to empower the silent. People that are quiet or introverted don't want to talk, and because they're embarrassed. So what you can do to help them out, get their thoughts heard, you can do anonymous surveys or polls. And then you need to make sure that you're learning as you go and you're making adjustments as you go. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about first is the change control process. And so as I said, MetaView had experienced an IT disruption due to an unapproved change, and what I recommend is they institute a formal change control process. So when you have a change control process, you first of all need to establish the project baselines. And so you need to appoint a change control board. People who are usually on this committee are people who are responsible for making the ultimate decisions at the facility. So that might be the CEO, the CIO, CFO, IT leadership, and VP of nursing. Then you're going to establish a charter, and a charter provides you with information about the membership committee, what's the scope of the practice, the roles and responsibility of the members. Then you're going to develop policies and procedures, and what those do is they provide you step-by-step guides to actions so that they're going to be standardized and repeatable. And then you define the procedures that need to be followed to meet the requirements of the change management process. And then you're going to institute the change control process, and I'm going to show you a workflow about that in a minute. And then the meetings that happen after that, the subsequent meetings after the first meeting, are going to be decided by the change control chair board. And then when things are approved or delayed or denied, the results of those changes are going to be disseminated by the project manager. And then usually the change control board is going to meet after changes have been tested, because then that's when they're going to make the decision whether they're going to go ahead with changes, during implementation of the changes, and then 2 weeks after the implementation of the changes has occurred. So here's just an example of what I found in the literature for a change request form, because you want to know when it was requested, who it went to, what the request is, who submitted it, how you can get a hold of them, and then what system you need it, and then what's their priority for this. Next step after that's been requested, your IT department is going to evaluate it for whether it's a high priority, a medium priority, or low priority. They're going to look at it and test it. They're going to evaluate it for the change type. What's the scope of the project? What's the time it would take? How long would it last? What's the cost of it? What resources are going to be needed? Are they going to need to get different products? And then what's the process that they would have to go about to institute the change? And then the change request is assigned a status, and so it's either open, in progress, in review, being tested, or closed. And then also it'll give on there who's responsible for doing these things. After it's closed, the change request is sent to the control board for them to make a decision whether they're going to implement it, delay it, or deny it. So here's that change control workflow process flow sheet I was talking about. You submit the proposed change. The change control board gets it after it's been looked at by the IT department, and they review it, make decisions. The project manager notifies of the decisions, and then the change management process is implemented. And the change management process includes change request, technical and business assessment of the change, documentation, testing, implementation, and reporting. So here's an example of a change request form that I found in the literature. You can have your own developed, but this is just an example. Technical and business aspects, you want to know what the risk is going to be, what the effect of the change is going to occur, because if you make a change in one system, it's going to affect all the other systems down the line. What's the feasibility of making the change at the time that they want it to occur? And then you're going to do a business assessment. What's the evaluation of the plan change? How much risk is this going to have on the organization? So is it going to put the facility at risk for security breach? Things like that. How much is it going to impact operations? So if your organization has other business units, is it going to affect them at all? So they need to look at that. Then you're going to get management approval of the change. So after the technical and business assessment is done, it's going to go to the change control board, and only changes that have been submitted formally and they have the supporting document of the technical and business assessment are going to be evaluated by the change control board. And then they will make a decision about the type of approval status. And here's just an example of some things that other facilities have had to have documentation for that's going to require approval. So installation of new applications, patches and updates, policy and procedures, network systems or problems, changes in hardware or software. This documentation is always going to be archived, and it's going to be maintained for the life of the hardware or the software that's in use. And then there's also going to be record kept of whether a change was approved, delayed, or denied, because you want to have that information. So testing is done in the testing environment before it's implemented in the production environment, and it's tracked and documented following the test, and then that's also presented to the control board so they can look at that before full implementation happens. Because this, again, I've talked about security. You need to make sure your level of security is the same or greater than it was during your original implementation of your EHR. So implementing it, all changes must be made as thoroughly as when your initial EHR implementation. This is the time when security risks happen, and you need to be sure you're really paying attention and being careful. Reporting of changes is to be done with the same rigor as the initial implementation of the EHR, and evaluation measures will be collected and they'll be disseminated to the change control board after the change project is complete. Then after you've done that, then you're going to communicate when it's going to go out of the testing environment into production, and you're going to communicate with the end users. After the changes have been approved and tested, implementation is going to begin, and you're going to contact the end users by blogs, newsletters, presentations at staff meetings. You can do blast emails, you can do posters, and you're going to set up training sessions, and then you're also going to set up on-unit demonstrations. These are all important because you want to get employee and end user buy-in, and so it's important that you have visibility so the staff know that you are there to help them. Here's a list of my references. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. Thank you.